Hi guys, welcome back to the channel. So today we are going to be making a tutorial on how to make this ruffled yoke on a blouse. So if this is something that interests you, kindly stay tuned to the end of this tutorial. Thank you. So first and foremost, we are going to be drafting a basic bodice pattern on this pattern paper. I have a video on this channel on how to draft a basic bodice pattern. I'll link it in the description box below, but I'm just going to go ahead and rush through the drafting now. So I'm going to start by marking my bust points. The bust point we are using for this tutorial is 9.5 inches. I mark the bust point, the waist of 16 inches and the top length of 20 inches. So I'm just going to make a straight line across those points now. So I'll label it bust points, waistline and top length. So I'm going to take my tape and just go to the bust point, and I'll go up by 1.5 inches on the bust point, and I'll make another line on that, and that's our chest line. So after marking out the chest line, I will go to the starting point of our pattern paper, which is going to serve as our shoulder line. So I'm going to mark my shoulder measurements, which is 7 inches, and on that 7 inches I'll go down by 1 inch. So I'm going to use the neck width of 3 inches. So after marking the neck width of 3 inches, I'm going to connect it to the 1 inch that I came down with, and that's going to serve as our shoulder slope. So on that shoulder slope, I'm going to mark a straight line down to the chest line, and that's the line that we denote where we are marking our armhole. So after doing that, I will take the midpoint of that line, of that straight line I just drew now. So once I get the midpoint, I'm going to mark out the midpoint, then go inward by half an inch, and I'll go to the chest line and mark out my bust circumference measurement, which is 8.25 of an inch. So once I mark it, I'll take my armhole curve and just use it to form my armhole like so. So after that, I'll go to my waistline and mark my waist circumference measurement, which is 6.5 inches. I didn't want to add that to this before, but I decided to go ahead and add that to it. So I'm going to mark nipple to nipple measurement divided by 2. The nipple to nipple we are using is 7 inches, divided by 2 is 3.5. So I marked 3.5 on the waistline, on the bust point, and on the top length. So after marking it like that, I'm just going to use my ruler to connect it in a straight line. So after that, I'm going to go to the waistline and just go out on both sides by half an inch. Then I'm just going to connect it in a triangular form to the bust point on both sides, and I will do the same again to the top length on both sides, and that's legs that I'm drawing now. So after that, that means we have already formed our dart. So after marking the dart, I will continue with my circumference measurements. So I'll go to the bust, the chest line again. I've marked out the bust circumference, and I'll add 1.5 inch seam allowance. I'll go to the waistline again. I've marked out the waist circumference. I will add the 1 inch that we just deducted for that, and I'm going to add 1.5 inches seam allowance. And I'm going to go ahead and take my ruler to connect the bust point to the waistline. Then I'm going to extend the line straight to the top length. After that, I'll go to the top length at the side, and I'm just going to go up by 1 inch. So I'll take my curve rule and just use it to connect that 1 inch to the top length like so. This is to give our top a form of shape at the side. So the next thing we are going to do now is to start working on our yoke. So before you mark out your yoke, you will determine the side you want your yoke to be. Do you want it to be on the chest line or on the bust point. So I want my yoke to start from somewhere in between the chest line and the bust point. So I'm just going to go ahead now and just measure the distance between the chest line and the bust point and mark the midpoint. So this is the midpoint that I am rolling out now. So from that midpoint, I'm going to mark out my yoke. But you can decide if you want a triangular form, you can decide to just place your ruler on the center front the way I just placed it and connect it straight to the distance between the armhole, or you can decide to maintain a straight line by just marking it out on your chest line. But for me, I just want it's a beautiful shape, so I'm going in on that line by 1 inch. So after going in by 1 inch, I'm going to go ahead and connect that 1 inch to the shoulder, to that armhole, that midpoint of the armhole. So I'm just going to connect it like that. So after connecting it, I'll go ahead to mark my neck depth. The neck depth I'm going for is 3 inches. So I'm just going to mark 3 inches and connect it with my armhole curve to the 3 inches neck width. So guys, we are practically done drafting our pattern. So I'll go ahead now and cut out this pattern. So before I cut out the neckline and separate the yoke, I'm going to use this pattern to draft my back panel. So I went ahead to get another pattern paper from my back panel. So I'm going to first of all mark out the zipper allowance, which is going to be 1¼ of an inch. So I'll mark the zipper allowance first. So after marking the zipper allowance, I'll place the center front on the line that marks the beginning of the zipper allowance, and I'm going to go ahead and trace out the front panel on the back panel. Mind you, the neckline for the back for the front panel and the armhole for the front panel is always deeper than that of the back panel. So that's the main difference between the front and the back panel. So that's why I'm not using the armhole of the front panel to mark out that of the back panel. So for the neckline of the back panel, I'm going to use the neck depth of 2 inches. And once I'm done drafting, I will cut it out. After cutting it out, we are going to continue with our ruffled yoke. So guys, this is our back panel. I'm going to set it aside. So let's continue working on the front panel. So now I'm just going to go ahead now and cut out the neckline. Then I'm going to cut out the yoke. So remember, we are going to be joining these two parts together. So when we are cutting each part on the fabric, we are going to be adding ½ an inch to it, which is going to be same allowance that we are going to use to join it together. So now I'm going to bring in another piece of pattern paper. Remember, our front panel is supposed to be on fold. So that's why we are bringing in a new pattern paper. So I'm going to fold this new pattern paper into two as if I'm folding a fabric, and I'm going to go ahead and place the yoke we cut out on it and pin it down. So we are going to pretend that this new pattern paper is our fabric. So because we are pretending it's our fabric, we are going to be adding ½ an inch at the down part, and we'll be adding the ½ an inch that we are going to use to join the shoulders together to it. So after marking it out, I'm just going to go ahead now and cut it out. So once I cut it out, I'm going to remove the pins and spread it out. So guys, after spreading it out, this is how our yolk is. So we are getting there. So the next thing we are going to do is to start by joining our net to to this pattern paper. These two nets is what we are going to be using to form our ruffles. So I'm trying to spread it out open so I can lay it flat on the pattern paper. So after laying it flat on the pattern paper, I'll make sure that the down part is long. Yes, so I'll make sure the down part is longer than the pattern paper, and I'm going to take it to my machine and go ahead to sew it down while ruffling it up the way I'm doing now. So make sure that when you are sewing it down, you are following the pattern of the down parts of our yoke. What do I mean by this? Let me start explaining all over again. So you are going to follow that pattern the way I'm using my hand to trace it now till the end. So let me explain all over again. So you are going to lay your nets on the pattern paper the way I laid it. Then you will start by forming gathers. So you form your gathers like this. Then you sew it down at the down part. You form your gathers, you sew, you form your gathers, you sew. So as you are forming your gathers, you'll be sewing down along that pattern, maybe like 0.25 to the inches to the end of the pattern. So you sew it down, you fold, you sew it down, you fold, you sew it down, fold, sew it down, fold, sew it down till the end of the pattern paper. So I'm going to go ahead and do that now. So guys, this is how it looks like after sewing it down, and this is the back of it. So the next thing I'm going to do now is to go ahead and sew it down on the shoulder and on the neckline. So how are we going to do it? We are just going to arrange the ruffles properly, making sure they are straight on the pattern paper. Make sure they are straight, they are aligning with the down parts the way it is straight. As you can see, this one that I'm arranging now is straight. So after arranging it straight like this, I'll sew it down. Then I will go ahead and arrange the ones on the neckline as well, and just go ahead and sew it down on the neckline. Then I will arrange the one on the other shoulder line and sew it down as well. So guys, this is what I have after sewing it down on the neckline and on the shoulder. This is exactly what I have. So the next thing I'm going to do is to trim off the excesses, both at the down parts, on the shoulder and on the neckline. After trimming off the excess, this is what I have. As you can see, our yoke is already forming. So I'm going to take my bias strip and just use it to turn in the neckline. So guys, I've gone ahead to turn in the neckline, and this is how it looks on the wrong side. So after turning in the neckline, the next thing is to remove the pattern paper from the two nets. So while removing it, be careful so that you don't tear off the stitches while removing your pattern paper. So after removing our pattern paper, this is what we have. So I'm just trying to cut off some threads that I used to sew it down. So the next thing is to attach this yoke to our fabric. So this is our fabric. I'm trying to remove the pattern paper from the fabric. So I'll set aside the lining as well. I'm just going to open up the fabric now. After opening up the fabric, I will place the ruffled two nets on the fabric, making sure the right sides are facing each other. So I'm going to go ahead and pin it down. Make sure that they are aligning. Remember, we have a shape on our neck, so make sure that those shapes are aligned. So after that, I will take it to my machine, sew it down to one side like this, and I'll sew it down to the other side again like this. So once I finish sewing down the two nets, I'm going to take my lining and I will place it on the net as well, like this. You can decide to sew it together like this. So make sure all the three pieces are aligning properly, then you sew it down and sew it down. After that, you will flip it to the other side and top stitch on the lining so it can lie flat. So guys, this is what we have after joining the two nets to our fabric and our lining. So this is the wrong side. As you can see, it's looking neat on the wrong side because we sewed the two nets in between the lining and the fabric. I should have pressed it down so that it can lie flat properly, but there's no power. So if you are sewing yours, make sure that you press it down. So the next thing I'm going to do now is to take in the darts. After taking in the darts, I'm going to place my front and my back panel on the front panel. As you can see, I've taken the darts of the back panel, so that's why the front panel is a little bit larger than it. So I'll take it to my machine and just taking the darts and sew it at both sides with 1.5 inches and just join it together on the shoulder, and we are done with our clothes. So guys, this is the final look of our clothes. As you can see, it's looking so beautiful on the mannequin. Let me know in the comment section whether you learned something in this tutorial today. Please do well to like this video and subscribe to this YouTube channel, and I'll see you guys in the next one.